So last week we had a meeting between President Trump and President Putin. This Monday, yesterday pretty much, we had a meeting in the White House between the European leaders and President Zelensky. Meeting was obviously regarding the situation in Ukraine. It's crazy what I read in the news. The amount of articles that said that European leaders went to support Zelensky to prevent him being bullied by President Trump is just ridiculous. Come on, Democrats, wake up. What is the... I don't understand how they can complain about President Trump not doing enough or failing or whatever. I would understand if I think it was an article from BBC or Forbes, the one I read. Anyway, I would understand if they would be complaining that President Trump cares about foreign politics, right? But no, they're complaining about, they're literally mocking President Trump. It's ridiculous. He's the only person who's trying to reach the peace deal, who's trying to reach the ceasefire. Obviously, one of the complaints were that he kind of skipped the ceasefire. But hey, it doesn't matter how this war ends. I mean, this war needs to end with peace deal, right? We need to end this war. And if unfortunately there's not going to be any ceasefire deal and people will keep dying for 10 days, 20, a month, it's bad. We don't want people to die. But it's still better than continue with the war like the European leaders want, which is just ridiculous. And look, let's make one thing clear. The only person or nation that's bullying Ukraine is Russia. President Trump said multiple times that he cannot sign the peace deal on behalf of Ukraine, right? He's pretty much just mediator. He's the person who has enough power to put Russia to negotiation table and Ukraine. No one else does that. No one else even planned it. President Trump is literally the only one who cares about the peace. And to be fair, so far he's proving that he cares about the peace even more than President Zelensky or Putin, right? Because, yeah, I don't know. It's just ridiculous that they're portraying President Trump as a bad guy. Seriously, guys? He doesn't need to care about the situation in Ukraine. It's not his nation. He's just trying to stop the war out of his goodwill, whatever. If he would care only about Americans, he can stop the support to Ukraine because it goes from taxpayers' money, right? And he can just care about the US. But no, he's trying to stop it and people are complaining about it. And saying the BS that the European leaders are there to stop bullying of Zelensky, come on. That's ridiculous. First of all, European leaders have some chips in this war of Ukraine, right? They supported Ukraine, which, by the way, it's kind of ridiculous that Poland is not there since they supported Ukraine more than France, for example. They provided more military aid, more money, more everything, right? It's ridiculous. But anyway, obviously, you need to have some security guarantees and all of it. So it's not going to be just Ukraine and US. Obviously, it's going to be European Union, Europe, NATO, all of it, right? That's why they're there, because they need to discuss all of this. This peace deal is not going to be only Russia and Ukraine. Obviously, it's going to be two parties that need to sign it. But the security guarantees are not going to be only between these two parties or these two nations. But anyway, without further ado, let's see this BBC video. It's titled Ukraine Zelensky meets Trump at White House with support of European leaders. BBC News. I'm pretty sure they're Democratic outlet, but we'll see.
Donald Trump has confirmed the US would be involved in security guarantees for Ukraine as part of a deal to end the war with Russia. The comments came during a historic meeting involving several European leaders, Ukraine's President Zelensky and Mr. Trump at the White House. It was a hastily arranged gathering following hard on the heels of this weekend's Alaska summit involving the US.
No. It wasn't hastily arranged meeting. Like, if you saw interview with Mark Rubio and what was it, CBS News, they've been talking about this for weeks. So again, that's such a BS. Come on.
President Vladimir Putin. Ukraine and much of Europe had feared America would acquiesce to Russia's conditions for ending the war. Now they have the ear of Mr. Trump, with the hope that perhaps even a trilateral meeting involving the US President, Zelensky and Vladimir Putin might take place soon. Well, we'll be live in Kiev and analyse what America's involvement could be in any peacekeeping force, as well as what security guarantees might be on offer for Ukraine. But first, let's go live to Sarah Smith at the White House. Sarah.
Yeah, there's been several hours of meetings inside the White House, still going on at the moment, as we understand. And the mood here could not be more different from that infamous Oval Office showdown 6 months ago. These talks seem to have been amicable and
Yes, it's democratic outlet. Okay, let's talk about that first meeting that we saw where Zelensky got pretty much scolded like a little boy. First of all, he was trying to bait President Trump into saying how bad President Putin is. Do you understand, when you're a mediator, when you're trying to accomplish some deal, you can't be obviously biased towards one party? Like, it was ridiculous. President Zelensky was always trying to bait Trump into saying something that he didn't want to say. And Zelensky was warned before this meeting. He was warned, dress politely, dress professional, whatever. What did he do? Didn't dress professionally. Another thing, don't talk about this. We're here to sign this deal. Don't bring this shit up. And he did. So, like, what are we talking about? And since then, again, Marco Rubio said that since then they had at least dozens of meetings. So this is just ridiculous legacy news BS.
Productive. We've heard from President Zelensky already, who said that this is the best conversation he has ever had with Donald Trump. We know that they looked at a map of Ukraine's front lines together and discussed what a peace settlement could look like before then joining a wider meeting with all the European leaders who've come here as well, all of whom agreed the next step has to be a three-way meeting between the US, Ukraine and Russia.
Yep.
A full ceremonial greeting as President Zelensky returned to the White House, prepared for a crucial meeting, hoping it won't be a repeat of his last visit here.
President Trump, sir, your message to the people of Ukraine.
Oh, look what they mean by being prepared. He has a suit. Still missing the tie though, but better than what athletic outfit he had last time.
As world leaders gather here today.
It's an honor to have the president of Ukraine with us. We've had a lot of good discussions, a lot of good talks.
The Ukrainian president handed over a letter from his wife to Melania Trump, who herself has written to President Putin about the plight of Ukrainian children who've been kidnapped to Russia. Attacked for ingratitude 6 months ago, he took great care to say thank you again and again.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. If I can, first of all, thank you for...
Whoa, what a difference, right? Well, you live or you learn. It's good to see that now he's like acting with more respect.
Invitation, and thank you very much for your efforts, personal efforts to stop killings and stop this war. Thank you, and using this opportunity, many thanks to your wife, First Lady of the United States.
President Zelensky wants to see a ceasefire in Ukraine. Donald Trump changed his mind about that after he met President Putin.
I don't think you need a ceasefire. You know, if you look at the 6 deals that I settled this year, they were all at war. I didn't do any ceasefires. And I know that it might be good to have, but I can also understand strategically why, well, you know, one country or the other wouldn't want it. You have a ceasefire and they rebuild and rebuild and rebuild, and, you know, maybe they don't want that.
Will Mr. Zelensky talk about redrawing Ukraine's borders and ceding land to Russia?
We need to stop this war, to stop Russia, and we need support American and European partners. And we will do our best for this. I think we show that we are strong people, and we supported the idea of the United States, personally of President Trump.
Yeah, no, definitely. How they defend their country, it's unbelievable. No one expected it, like, respect towards Ukrainian, like, definitely. But do you really think you can win with just money and military equipment? I think you're eventually going to bleed out, and that's why you need the peace deal. The peace deal should have been signed 3 years ago. Like, to me, I think it should have been solved completely differently. Either you sent all of the NATO, US, everyone there right when Russia attacked Ukraine, and just repel them and be like, no, slap them on the wrist. That's not gonna happen on our watch. Or you signed a peace deal in first 1 to 2 weeks. Like, look, now the war is going on for 3 years, 3.5. Generation of Ukrainians completely wiped out or moved out of Ukraine. That's never going to recover. And to me, the craziest thing is, so Russia, originally when they attacked Ukraine, they said it's a military operation against Nazis and corruption in Ukraine, if I remember correctly, right? Now it's like several hundred billions of money that went into the Ukraine. Where are the receipts for the money? Where's peace deal? Where's end of the war? Like, right now, to me, it smells corruption. And especially since they didn't have elections for president. I understand that they're at war, but at the same time, they're traveling all over the world. So why don't you hold elections? Because President Zelensky, his term is over. So just hold a new elections. Like, it's the longer it goes, the more gray zone it kind of becomes. Obviously, no, like Russia attacking Ukraine, there's no justification for it. Shouldn't have happened. It's not fair. Unfortunately, it's never gonna be any justice for Ukraine, or at least not right now. But you need to sign a peace deal. You need to end this war, because eventually people will start doubting Ukraine.
To stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war.
Donald Trump really wants to convene a three-party meeting
diplomatic
sometime
is on
soon.
the way.
One that would include himself, as well as President Zelensky and Putin.
And I just spoke to President Putin indirectly, and we're going to have a phone call right after these meetings today. And we may or may not have a trilat. If we don't have a trilat, then the fighting continues. And if we do, we have a good chance. I think if we have a trilat, there's a good chance of maybe ending it. But he's expecting my call when we're finished with this meeting.
The Ukrainian leader came dressed in a suit, not his usual fatigues, after he was attacked for his attire the last time.
President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Wait, was that JD?
I said the same thing.
Yeah,
Nice.
I said to the one that attacked you last time. See, now
I remember.
Yeah, I apologize to you. You look wonderful. My
Nice.
first question for you, President Zelensky.
In the same suit. You see, I changed, you are not.
After their Oval Office meeting, Presidents Trump and Zelensky sat down with Sir Keir Starmer and the 6 other European leaders who are here to support Ukraine to discuss how they can guarantee it won't be attacked again. Mr. Zelensky seemed upbeat.
I think that we had very good conversation with President Trump.
Very good.
And it really was the best one. Maybe the best one will be in the future. But it was really good. And we spoke about very sensitive points. The first one is security guarantees, and we are very happy with President that all the leaders are here, and the security in Ukraine depends on the United States and on you and on those leaders who are with us in our hearts.
European countries will be key to any NATO-style agreement that they would all rally to defend Ukraine in future.
The war in Ukraine has had a huge impact, particularly on the Ukrainians who've borne the brunt of it. But it's also had an impact on Europe and on the United Kingdom. There's not a family or community that hasn't been affected. And when we talk about security, we're talking about the security not just of Ukraine, we're talking about the security of Europe and the United Kingdom as well, which is why this is such an important issue.
Never before have so many leaders gathered together in the White House. This historic event may make progress towards ending the war in Ukraine, but one person is missing. They all agreed the next step has to be a meeting that includes Vladimir Putin. A summit with Ukraine and Russia could be the result of what's been discussed here today.
We'll be live with Katie Watson in Kiev in a moment. But to you, Sarah, the talks, they seem to have broken up. They went on for a while. Any developments?
Well, as you say, as we understand, the various leaders have now left the Oval Office, and we hope that we'll be hearing from a number of them quite soon. They will disappear off to their own corners and we hope give press conferences where we might find out a little bit more about what went on in the room. There was very positive vibes about it coming when I was in the room for the beginning of that meeting with the European leaders, Presidents Trump and Zelensky, with everybody taking great care, of course, to thank and praise Donald Trump for having convened this meeting and possibly moving towards a trilateral meeting with Russia, US and Ukraine. We have heard here that President Zelensky, who had planned to do an interview with Fox News following these meetings, has now cancelled that, but no indication if that's because things have gone particularly well or particularly badly. You'll remember the last time President Zelensky was here 6 months ago, a press conference afterwards was planned as he was rushed out of the White House after that falling out in the Oval Office. The entire afternoon's events fell to pieces then, and he was quickly taken off the premises. It's been quite the opposite today, as hours of meetings have been going on, which have only just broken up in the last few minutes.
Yeah, very different atmosphere indeed. To you, Katie, in Kiev, it has to be said, we got another grim reminder overnight of the toll of this war on Ukraine.
Absolutely. The last day has been very difficult here in Ukraine, in Kharkiv, which was the worst hit, the most deadly attack, a drone attack on a residential building, killing at least 7, including a 1.5-year-old little girl.
God.
And further south in Zaporizhia, there was an attack on a bus stop, several dead there, as well as an attack on an oil facility in Odessa. So yes, it's been a difficult day, but this is also the daily reality for Ukraine. And President Zelensky was in Washington against this backdrop of an active war and trying to...
Well, that's why they need to stop, right? I can't believe it's going for 3.5 years. And I can't believe that President Zelensky and obviously President Putin as well were not willing to negotiate. I mean, I get it from Putin's side, but President Zelensky, like, they had opportunity to try to have some negotiations. And to be fair, it's not just on him. It's because back then President Biden and Europe just gave him the undying support without saying, hey, you need to work towards the peace. But eventually you have to start talking about the peace, because the size of the Russia versus the size of the Ukraine, like, you don't want to lose the whole nation.
Explain to Donald Trump and leaders this is exactly why Ukraine wants to find a path towards leading peace.
Yeah, and the view of people where you are, of those talks in Washington, is there a sense of hope that there could be a breakthrough?
I spoke to a Ukrainian yesterday who was very worried about this meeting, worried that President Zelensky would be made a fool of after that meeting back in February. I mean, you think 3 days ago, Ukrainians here were watching Presidents Trump and Putin holding a summit in Alaska on Ukraine, not even inviting Ukraine. Fast forward to today, and he's now at the center of negotiations with European leaders and...
He had a first meeting with President Putin while he had like 12 with President Zelensky. Obviously, for the first meeting, when you're a mediator, why would you invite both parties, especially when they're at war, hate each other and everything? Especially how President Zelensky showed how emotional he can be. So obviously, first you want to test the waters with just the aggressors, right, with Russia. And possibly talk to them, see what their demands are without any other party interrupting. And that's why he has this meeting, or why he had this meeting on Monday, to tell the European leaders and to Ukrainians what he found out, where's the path towards peace, right? And now he can hold a meeting with both parties, because now he knows how to kind of guide that meeting. He definitely warned Zelensky about what to talk about, what not to talk about. Obviously, he can't tell him, don't do this, but he can give him advice, right? So, I don't know, I don't think it's anything weird that Ukraine wasn't invited to Alaska.
And Donald Trump. So I think people here will be pleased to see that turnaround, pleased to hear from leaders, talking about security guarantees, talking about a trilateral. He and his advisors even brought along a map to show Donald Trump about where, what territory in Ukraine was held by Russia, presumably with the intention of explaining that they did not want to be giving up any of that land. But certainly, ceasefire talk as well. Donald Trump wanting to skip a ceasefire. Again, leaders saying that was really important to have a ceasefire first. I think all of this will be good news for Ukrainians watching, tuning into this, even if, it's small steps and we're still a long way from peace.
Yeah.
No, I don't think ceasefire is necessary, especially since Russia didn't agree to it up until now. Like, it's just a step towards a peace, right? But if you think you'll be able to sign the peace deal straight away, why to give Russia another time to recruit more soldiers or train more soldiers or anything, right? And then what? Then they're not going to sign the peace deal and you're back at the beginning, right? I don't know. I don't think it's a bad idea to try to go for the peace straight away.
Small steps. All right, Katie, thank you for that. Katie Watson in Kiev and Sarah Smith in Washington. Many thanks. Well, as we've been hearing, Donald Trump did confirm America would be involved in providing security guarantees for Ukraine in the event of a peace deal. So, how would those guarantees work, and what could any deal mean for Ukraine's territorial integrity? Here's Paul Adams.
These could be decisive days in the search for peace in Ukraine. But it's clear that Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump expect Kyiv to give up places that have already been through hell, where the sacrifices have been enormous.
We also need to discuss the possible exchanges of territory, taking into consideration the current line of contact. That means the war zone, the war lines that are pretty obvious, very sad, actually, to look at them.
Vladimir Putin has been trying to conquer the eastern region known as the Donbass for more than a decade. It consists of two administrative areas, Donetsk and Luhansk. But Ukraine still holds around 30% of Donetsk. There's a line of cities here from Sloviansk through Kramatorsk and down to Konstantinivka. It's become known as Ukraine's fortress belt. Giving it up and allowing Russia to gobble up what remains of Donetsk would leave other parts of Ukraine vulnerable to a future Russian attack.
Losing the core of this defensive belt means the Ukrainians are losing their most heavily defended, fortified positions, and much more of the country would be vulnerable to future attack.
And that raises the question not just of territory, but Ukraine's future security too. President Trump says there's been a breakthrough.
President Putin agreed that Russia would accept security guarantees for Ukraine, and this is one of the key points that we need to consider, and we're going to be considering that at the table also, like who will do what.
Ukrainian troops have been training in the UK and elsewhere since early in the war. Kyiv's allies determined to bolster its defences in the event of a ceasefire. Donald Trump seems willing to lend a hand, but the details are vague.
For a security guarantee to work, it would need to define the territory to be defended and the behaviour to be monitored or expected. And without those, it's difficult to see that the Russians would believe the US would deploy forces to directly fight them in defence of Ukraine or the Europeans.
War has dominated life in Kramatorsk for more than 10 years. While discussions about its future are held in distant capitals, people here are clinging on. Paul Adams, BBC News.
That's crazy, man. What's going on? No, definitely. Like, Ukraine is gonna have to give up some land, especially since Russia's in control over there. And yeah, some security guarantees needs to be there from both sides, from European Union, US, and from Russia, that they're not gonna attack them again, right? That all needs to be worked out, but I don't think there's anything bad about not wanting the ceasefire and go straight to the peace deal. One thing I think needs to be done straight away once you have peace deal or ceasefire is presidential elections under the protection of European Union, US, right? Just to make sure that Russia's not going to interfere. And look, if they're going to have a peace deal, ceasefire, whatever, the chances of Zelensky getting reelected, I think they're really high if he manages to end up this war. And I have nothing against it. Just make it again legitimate. Make him again legitimate president, because right now that's kind of the gray area. Like, he's, yes, president at war, but his term is over. So let's just make this thing clear right when we can, right? I don't know, call me crazy, but I think it's very important to do it.